I think we're live. Let me get positioned here. I'm in a different place tonight. Ooh, my hair might be messy. Got to print for the camera, right? Happy Samhain. Well, in a couple of days. Actually, no. That's one of the great falsehoods of modern culture, is to think that Samhain falls on October 31st. Everyone knows what Samhain is, right? It's generally referred to as Halloween in our modern culture. It's one of the quarter holidays off the Celtic calendar. The main Celtic calendar, which is sometimes and erroneously referred to as the pagan calendar, yay, Melody, you've arrived. We just barely started, and we're talking about Samhain. So you've heard me report on how the Roman Catholic Church co-opted a lot of traditional religions by stealing their holidays and then moving them. There's a great deal of astronomical significance to the way we do our holidays. Or I should say did, because few people do it anymore. The solstices and the equinox were the defining moments of the calendar. And halfway between each solstice and equinox is a what's called the quarter holidays. So halfway between fall equinox and winter solstice is the quarter holiday known as Samhain. It's got a couple other key features, which I'll get to in a moment. Depending on the exact alignment of the Earth around the sun and where that date falls, so where do the solstices and equinoxes fall? They fall anywhere from the 20th, the 21st, or some cases the 22nd of the months on our current calendar in which they fall. So December, either the 20th or the 21st usually, is winter solstice. And you back up 6 months and you have summer solstice, and halfway in between those at that 3-month point is fall equinox. And halfway from fall equinox to winter solstice, on or about the 6th of November, is the holiday known as Samhain. Now, Samhain is often referred to as the harvest festival. It's also often referred to as the New Year on the Celtic calendar. Now, behind my shoulder, right there, is a Celtic, in honor for this being Samhain, or a couple of days away from the modern Samhain. I've got my little Celtic shield up there hanging. It's a tapestry that I hung up just for this momentous occasion. Hi, Maria. Welcome. We're talking about the real Celtic calendar and Samhain. There's an alignment between the planes, this physical earth plane and the higher planes. And at this time of year, because of our curious location in space, the veil between this world and what the Celts would refer to as the other worlds, or the afterlife worlds, the veil is thinner here than at any other time of the year. So it's actually possible and easier to communicate with those on the, hey, Yvonne, hi. You're all checking in, I'm following it down. I'll say something about our physical setup here in just a moment. So the veil is thinnest, and you can, if you know how, if you're trained, if you've developed some shamanic skills and some astral skills, you can actually communicate with the dead and the ascended and those on the other side of the veil. It's easiest around the real date of Samhain, which is November 6th. It's a window. It's not a hard moment from an engineering term where you're going along and there's a sudden step function and you've got a little tiny window like this and then the window closes like that. That's what popular movies and TV shows would have you believe, but it's actually more of a bell curve. It gets stronger, reaches a peak for a short period of time, and then it will fade. So the ancients knew that. They were very in tune. That's what all the standing stone circles are about, partly. If you've ever watched or read the books first, they came out as books first, the television show Outlander, everybody's getting excited right now because of season 4 coming out. But that's the premise. You go there at the right time of the year, which in the first episode, the very first book starts at Samhain. And there's an energetic activation. So she touched it. Her intent carried her back to that specific time. It wasn't random. She and her husband had just been talking about that place, that time. That's what was in her head. And so when she touched it, it sent her back. The Roman Catholic Church was trying to make inroads and failing miserably, especially in the areas that the Celts inhabited. So northern and western, big parts of northern and western Europe, and especially the British Isles. The Brits, the Welsh, the Scots, the Manx, and the Irish are the 5 major categories of Celts. Those of us of Pictish ancestry are kind of going to go, don't forget about me. We were there first. We were there before the later arriving Scots. And we were the ones who defeated the Romans, just so you know. But so the Picts, throw them in there too. They're a subset of Scots by today's standards. That whole British Isles, everyone very in tune with these ancient cultures and these ancient energetic facts of the energy fields of the earth and people and space and the planets. And this is really interesting. They were really, really in tune with early Christianity. There's a lot of stories that show how Joseph of Arimathea and Mary Magdalene, the Apostle Paul, all went to Britain because they'd been there before. Travel was much more widespread than conventional historians would have you believe. And there's some speculation that in addition to going off and getting trained in Egypt and in India and in the Himalayas, that Jesus actually spent time in Great Britain and probably France, or what is now France. The Franks hadn't arrived yet. That came much, much later. And so after his crucifixion and resurrection, when Mary Magdalene and Joseph of Arimathea left to save their lives, because everybody's really upset with them, they went there. And so when the Roman Catholic Church arrived, 500, 600, 700 AD, there was already a form of Christianity there that was referred to as Celtic Christianity. And when the Roman Catholic Church showed up, the Celtic Christians were kind of like, yeah, we know, we've known for hundreds of years that here's the story, and we've had it since then. Of course, that outraged the Roman Catholic Church because they knew, or at least some of them did, that The Celtic Christians had a more pure version that couldn't be as easily co-opted by the Roman Catholic Church and their fake version. So what they did is, oh, you've got a winter solstice festival. We've got a winter solstice festival, but ours is better because it's right over here, and they've moved it a few days. And you get to Samhain. It's spelled Samhain. If you look at the spelling, it's Samhain, but because it's in Gaelic, it's pronounced Samhain. Yeah, you've got that thing over there on November 6th. Well, ours is over here. It's on November 1st. So about 5 days is what they typically moved it. And in the Celtic system, the day, quote unquote, the day starts on the sundown of the night before. So All Saints' Day on November 1st starts at sundown on October 31st. And so that's how they co-opted all the holidays. It's just that the Roman Catholic Church wasn't anywhere near as good with calendars as the Celts were, or the Toltecs were, or as most of the Arabic peoples, or as the Chinese were. In fact, when it came to calendars, I can honestly say that the nicest thing I can say about the Roman Catholic Church is they sucked. They didn't do calendars well. So they moved them, and it weakened them. It weakened the holidays. They didn't have the same energetic juice because the planets weren't aligned, the sun wasn't aligned, the moon wasn't aligned. It's not there. It's like when you're watching an eclipse and you go out on, well, the solar eclipse is on August 15th. We'll go out and you pay no attention to the time, and it's like you get out there and look through your little glass. Oh yeah, I can start to see something over there. That's nothing, and you walk away, and you miss that boing, perfect alignment when everything becomes amazing. So that's what the Roman Catholic Church did deliberately and by design. So if you really want to be serious about celebrating Samhain, you've got to go to November 6th. And this October 31 thing really isn't it. And I know a lot of people are going to be shocked about that. I wanted to say also, if there's any questions at any point, those of you who are on the chat are welcome to join in. Those who and a lot of you do watch this after the fact and you have questions about that, you're going to have to send me a text message or an email, because you don't get to play live chat if you're watching this tomorrow or next week. I didn't make the rules. YouTube made the rules, so I don't want to hear it, okay? So what I would like to encourage you to do, if you've never done this before, some of you may already have done this, and that's great. But on October 31, as the afternoon progresses, just pay attention to the energy of the space and the planet and get to sundown. If you could be outdoors at sundown, this will probably be a little better. And just pay attention to space. Turn on your Akadwa if you're a Akadwa holder, and just sense what's going on. And then wait a few days. Go up to like November 5th, November 6th, November 7th. Repeat that and see what you notice. Attempt to communicate, if you have somebody on the other side of the veil that you would like to communicate with, and you have a legitimate reason for it. It's like, hey, Great Aunt Martha, we know you buried the gold that your husband stole from the train somewhere in the backyard, and we really need to know where. So can you tell me? You know, that would be a good reason. Yeah, because we got to go return the gold to somebody, like my bank account. Yeah. Or where they left the car keys, so you don't have to go out and pay $150 for a new chip key to be made. And that's if you have even one key to copy. I never knew that. I went to make a chip key. It's like I was in this thing. It's like I need backup keys to all this stuff, right? And I took my Ford chip key in, and it's like, you want how much? No, thanks. I just won't. I'll be careful. I won't lose it. I wasn't in the mood that day to pay $150 for it, an emergency backup key. Maybe someday. Hey, did anybody hit that lottery of 1.9 billion? And if not, what's it up to now? Because, maybe I'll go play the lottery. They told me, finally, somebody said, when I mentioned I'd never won the lottery, so, well, how many cards do you buy each time? I go, what's this buy card lottery thing? I said, oh, you have to pay money in to win. So go test the dates yourself. Don't take my word for it. Just like everything I tell you, don't take my word for it. Go test it. Everything I tell you should be testable. And I tell you that there's this physics law called gravity. If you walk up to the top of a skyscraper and jump off, you're going to fall down and go splat. You can believe me or you're not. You can maybe do the same thing with a cantaloupe. And then hopefully the math works out so that you can convince yourself the cantaloupe and you would have the same results. But, whatever it takes to get you to believe the laws of physics. But in this case, this is the laws of metaphysics. Actually, it's not. Metaphysics means beyond physics. And what we're talking about is the physics between the various dimensions, the planes of reality, which is very nicely described in Einstein's theory of general relativity. So it's not metaphysics. It's real physics. And this is a way for you to test it. You've got a week almost before, let's see, the 4th is Sunday, so the 5th. So next Monday would be a good time to do that. And you can test it next Monday, next Tuesday, and next Wednesday. But do it the 31st, which is in 2 days. That makes that this Wednesday. So we're having an abbreviated session tonight. I'm probably not going to go as long as I usually do. And we're in a different place because we had an unfortunate incident with my computer, which is now finally, I found a shop that can work on it. And I have to have the screen repaired and or replaced. And so that's taking longer than I thought it would. I thought it wouldn't take so long to find somebody willing to work on it. There's a computer repair store, there's a business machinery store here in the giant city we live in called Mount Shasta City that used to repair computers and other technology like that. But now they don't. In fact, now they don't even open their doors to the public. They only deal with you if you've placed an order for something, in which case, why would I deal with them when I could just, I could a whole lot easier place an order online for office supplies. I don't think they got that memo yet, but they're getting it. They used to be open. I had gone in there and bought stuff and repaired stuff in the past. Well, not anymore. So I had to shop around and go to the next large city, 35 miles down the road, and now I'm getting my thing repaired. So we'll be back in our usual place in a week or two, maybe, but due to travel, we've got out-of-town events the next 2 weekends, and we'll probably do something really simple, just a short live broadcast so I can keep poking all you who are students and teasing you who aren't yet about the Toltec work. This Sunday, we'll be down in Chico at the Chico Healing Arts Fair. Is that what it's called? Chico Healing Arts Fair, yeah. At 2:30, I'm going to be talking to the public about consciousness and the Ikadua. We're going to be there promoting the Ikadua, doing Ikadua transmissions, and we have a new supply that we've obtained of crystals that are all highly resonant with the Akadu energy. And you're all welcome to send your friends down for transmissions or crystals or books or and we're not the only ones there. This is a big fair. It's like this whole big venue space that's full of booths. So you name it, it's probably there. Though I think I'm the only Toltec. At least I was the last time we were there a year ago. So anyway, that's coming up. But like I say, I'm probably going to be doing just a short broadcast the next 2 weeks because we're out of town and we just aren't literally going to have enough time to go through the whole process of setting a space to have an audience over. There's extra work involved in that, and it's just not going to be practical. So Cheeky Healing Arts Fair. Oh, and then the following weekend, we're going to have, we hope it's going to happen. We have a venue. There's going to be an Akadu level 1 class in Chico at, well, I don't remember the name of the yoga studio. We've spoken to the woman. We've got the space reserved. And there's a yoga studio down in Chico. And it's going to be there. So anybody in the greater Chico area, and I would extend that from Red Bluff all the way to Sacramento, up to Paradise, over to the coast. Well, pretty much anybody in Northern California. If you know someone who maybe they've already gotten a level 1 transmission, but they didn't get a formal class, or they're thinking about it and our Mount Shasta classes have just been a little too far. Well, here's their opportunity because we're in Chico on the 10th. And we will be doing that class. And then they have an opportunity. So let's say somebody has their level 1, they've been using it, and they want to get some training with it. They can come down and do that. And afterwards, if they want their level 2, we will be doing some level 2 attunements. And I know there's some level 1s running around the Chico area who haven't had a class and need a level 2. So tell your friends. I'd like to encourage all of you who are students to send at least somebody down to meet us and say, hey, go to this event. I think the admission to the venue is actually quite inexpensive. It was under $500 last time, so it probably still is. And then once you're in, you pay admission, you get to go to all the booths and pay more money. I think it was like $5 to get in the door last time. I don't remember, but it's probably online. So that would be a good Bonnie question if you email her. So that's what's coming up. So everybody do your Samhain test. And I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about how do you know you're on your right path? Which is always an interesting question. As soon as I figure out if I'm on my right path, I'll probably be able to give you better information. Yes, that was one of those bad jokes you're supposed to laugh at, even if you think it's not funny. I've warned you, my jokes are all bad. None of them are funny, but you have to laugh anyway. I'm trying to remember when exactly this was. For a really long time, when I was searching out something spiritual, that started when I was 4. And I had no clue. I had very little or no help. Fast forward a few years, and I'm trying to remember exactly when this was. If this was in the late 1990s, like about 20 years ago, maybe it was closer to 15. I'd probably find it in an old journal because I do actually write a lot of stuff in my journals, and you should too. This is how you find the synchronicities, is you go back and you read even the mundane things that you write in your journal. And quite frankly, the mundane things are more important sometimes than those great aha moments. Those are obvious and you seldom forget them. It's the mundane details that are sometimes called the footprints of your angel guiding you. So I went in and I had met some friends through, actually, they were more acquaintances still at that point, through a holistic healers working group. These were various holistic healing arts. So we had massage therapists and Reiki. Hey, thank you, Patricia, for laughing. You're supposed to log in, so I know you're there. I can't insult you. It's not, let's just say, it's not as much fun insulting someone if I don't know they're here. You know, that's like, well, so-and-so's not here tonight, so let's talk about them. If I know you're here, much better. Thank you for laughing at my bad joke. And so we'd get together once a month for our formal meeting. I think it was on a Sunday afternoon. And we talked about various aspects of holistic healing. You know, I was the only acupuncturist and or naturopath. Oh, she just figured out how to log in. You're here. You got up here. It's not a question of being on time. Sometimes you got to get there. Just keep going. Oh, you know what I just noticed down over there near my Celtic thing is you can see some of my ties, and my favorite Dilbert tie is hanging right there. Reminds me of my old days in aerospace, which I may actually talk about tonight now that I see that tie. So this holistic healers working group, I met some people. Some of them were more on the spiritual end of things, and that was at the point where my spiritual abilities were minimal and random. And I had been looking and reading for years and years, and I had found some of the fluffier stuff. I'd found some of the meatier stuff. Most of the stuff with real substance I didn't understand yet. But I met people, and one of them was opening a new center. And she did some different types of biofeedback, had all the fancy equipment. And so she was having an open house. Here's my new center. And so I got invited. It's like, hey, it's a weekend, it's free food, free punch to drink. So I'll go and I'll meet people. So I did. I went over there and I'm standing around and came in the door, and you sign the guest list, you get your free punch. You're wandering around trying to find somebody to talk to, and somebody came, made a beeline for me. Oh, you think so? Well, I can't let that challenge pass me by. And she came over to me and she says, "Where are you from? You don't have an aura like anything I've ever seen before. Where are you from? Who are you? What are you up to? What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I know so-and-so, and I'm here having my punch." No, that's not me. Where are you from? And so somewhere in the course of the conversation, she said, "Well, I'm looking in your fields, and you're going to be a shaman." And I'm like, "What?" I'm out there trying to pass myself off as a scientific alternative healer, because when you're in your 40s and you don't have 20 years of clinical experience, what are you lying? Well, I'm very scientific. See, I used to be a rocket scientist, so I can apply that scientific knowledge to this alternative healing stuff and prove that it works and blah, blah, blah. And there, it doesn't vie with it at all. Everybody knows the story of why his tie curls up, right? Good. I don't have to explain it. And so you're going to be a shaman. I'm like, You're nuts, aren't you? Oh, yes, but I'm still right. You're going to be a shaman. I'm like, I've been reading all this stuff, but I really didn't have a spiritual path. I didn't have a clue at that point about that. Well, she was right. Here I am. But you have to pay attention to the synchronicities. You know, I know people who've had 2, 3, 4, 5 major synchronicities telling them they need to be on the path to becoming a shaman, and they still haven't bitten. I only took about 3, and I'm slow. But yeah, I had that rigid scientific mind, which is very good for certain things, but it's not good for everything. And the biggest challenge for me personally was getting my right brain turned on and try to get it caught up to the same speed, which it pretty much almost is. But when I'm speaking right brain stuff, you can always tell I'm speaking right brain with a left brain accent. So sort of like when I go to Mexico, I don't starve because I can speak it well enough to order food, but one word out of my mouth and everybody knows I'm not a native speaker. So because I have that accent. That and reading out of a dictionary is probably their first clue. So you have to pay attention to those synchronicities. And that's why I keep harping about the journaling, because that's what gives you the opportunity, if you go back and look at your journal, to figure that kind of things out. There's a resonance with the synchronicities and your life. And the closer you are to being on path, the more the synchronicities happen. And the bigger and more real and more significant they seem. The farther away you get, they're less significant, they're less frequent. You know, like you're wandering around the wilderness. Now, if you start heading in a really bad direction, that's when your angel will go pop right upside the head and hopefully get your attention and drive you kind of back sort of in the general direction, or at least away from the bad direction. But if you are paying attention to all this and saying, you know, I'm not really having any synchronicities pointing me or confirming that I'm in the right direction, you're probably not. So that's when you need to stop doing what you're doing and do something different. And that's where you meditate and you ask for guidance and say, hey, Holy Guardian Angel, what am I supposed to be doing? And whatever your real path is, your real spiritual path, you're going to probably have to make some changes in your life. Unless you're one of those rare individuals who's born into the perfect incarnation with everything lined up and you just have to show up. And even that, when you look at the great avatars like Christ, like Krishna, like Buddha, and so forth, they had a lot of hard work to do. You want that hard work. You can't forge yourself into something greater without hard work. When I was still working in aerospace, and my God was at the time was Dilbert. We talked about him. We all had pictures up. I had the Dilbert calendar every year, and we loved the TV show. It was only on a season or two, but it was good. They had the big wall calendars. I had 2 wall calendars in my office. One was Dilbert, and the other was Ansel Adams. Every year I put up Ansel Adams and Dilbert. The Ansel Adams calendar was to remind me of what I would rather be doing. And the Dilbert cartoon calendar was to remind me that I didn't like what I was doing. And then I would have the little desktop flip top ones, the little square things that you peel it off every day. Yeah. And it was like, can't look ahead. So I went many years without a promotion, yet I was the one person they came to when they had a really hard problem they needed solved. And every time I was ready for that next big promotion to a big management rather than a little management position, I always got passed over. It was like total antithesis of a synchronistic event. It was an anti-synchronicity. And it's like, I had to get out of that place. So eventually I figured it out. But like getting out of the bad marriage, getting out of the bad job, out of the bad career took me a while. I'm just so left brain stubborn that it just didn't go well for a while. And so we need that shock. And just like the forging of metal, where you have to burn off the dross, burn out the impurities, and then to strengthen it, you take this red hot glowing metal with your pinchers. I recommend you don't use your bare hands. And you hold it on the anvil and you take your big hammer and you pound it out. Back in the fire and you get it red hot, and then you fold it and you pound it out again. You do that over and over. We need that. That's a perfect analogy for the spiritual work. You need that sweat equity. You need to do hard things. It's no different than going to the gym. And exercising. You want to build up your strength. You can lift 50 pounds. You decide you want to lift 100. You don't go from 50 to 100 without working your way up. You don't go from 100 to 200 without working your way up. You want to run a marathon? First off, let me say, if you really want to run a marathon, you need to see a mental health professional in a hurry. That's not sane. It's not normal. Good friend of ours down in Southern California decided, I think it was last year, this year, she wanted to run the LA Marathon. And I did my level best to talk her out of it. But she went through, she trained, she did this, and she ran it. And it took her 5 months to recover and get her health back. I'm usually not the gloating type, but in that case, I said, yeah, I told you so. It's not for humans. That's why God gave us horses and taught us how to train them so that we could ride that 26 miles rather than having to run it. And if there's any doubt about the danger of this thing, I mean, all you have to do is look at the prototypical marathon. Marathon, the race, takes its name from the time of the ancient Greeks, who were being invaded yet again by the Persians. And the Athenians were badly outnumbered and fought a Persian army at a place called the Plains of Marathon. And as luck would have it, the badly outnumbered Greeks won. And the remnants of the Persian army got back in their boats and sailed away and headed south to where Athens was. And the people of Athens were like afraid that the Persians might get there first, and convinced the people of Athens to open the gates. Oh, we beat your army, so now you're ours. So they had one guy who was probably who had the fewest wounds and was in the best shape and one of the fastest runners. And so they sent him to run to Athens, a distance of 26 miles. And so that's what he did. His name, I'm sure you all want to know his name. His name was Phidippides. I'm not going to spell it. You'll have to look it up. It starts with a PH because it's Greek, right? So he gets to Athens. He comes running in, talks to whoever's in charge, and says, "Victory is ours." And then he collapsed dead on the ground. So with that as the background of a marathon, why would anyone want to do that? And see, that was where the Greeks failed miserably, because they had domestic horses, but they never figured out how to use them in combat. I mean, that would have been a really easy thing to do, and nobody would have had to die if they had just gotten on a horse and ridden the 26 miles. But no, this is Greek. We're going to run and then die. But look at the poor guy. I mean, he died, but here we are some 2,500 years later, and we still know his name. He's immortal now because he ran the first marathon and died. But that resonance, nothing was resonating anymore for me in aerospace. I hated going to work. I wouldn't go so far as saying I hated the people I worked with, but I intensely disliked most of them. And it wasn't fun anymore. Yeah, it all sounds cool to build satellites and launch rockets and fly space shuttles, but then somebody does something stupid and they blow up, kill your friends. That wasn't a fun day. But it was very significant for me because it opened my eyes, and then I started to see behind the veil, and I saw how much BS and corruption there was, and how much bureaucracy, and it was, I just had to get out of there. So the resonance was such that it's like when you have two magnet poles that are the same, like two north poles or two south poles, they repel. And it will shoot you out of those situations just like that. Pretty much the same thing happened with my first marriage. It's like, it was great, all fun at first, but then you get this notion that in this case, it was me. I get this notion, well, there's more to the universe than this mundane material world here. And the movie Matrix hadn't even come out yet. When was The Matrix? I think that was in the 90s still, wasn't it? The first Matrix movie? Anyway, one of you can look it up and put a little note over here. And so it just rejected me. And then my ex, I started doing the spiritual work, the spiritual study, and the more I did, the madder she got, and the less compatible we were. And next thing I know, that marriage ended. And not too much longer after that, I met Bonnie. And it's like, wow, who knew you could have a spouse that you liked and get along with, and you're on the same spiritual wavelength? And of course, you got to be careful when you meet that person who seems perfect. Then they do weird things to you. They take you down and they introduce you to these short El Salvadorian shaman guys. And the next thing you know, you're doing some weird energy thing, and you just want to, okay, this is a great healing tool. That's all I want to do. Yeah, I don't need any of that shaman stuff. Oh, but you got to do this and I never was able to say no successfully to another class or activity that Coyote wanted me to do. And next thing I know, I'm like, what am I doing all this for? 99. Thank you, Patricia. Matrix was in 1999. So that was, yeah, I was already in naturopathic school by that time. So yeah, that was in the final downturn, the tail of the bell curve of my first marriage. When that came out and I started understanding it. So it just, those bad situations throw you out, and there's no way you can stay. And in some cases, you literally can't survive. If I had tried to force my way to aerospace and stay there, I mean, I was in my mid-30s, right? And I had friends younger than me having heart attacks and strokes from the stress. It's like I had to get out. I could just see the writing on the wall. I felt it at a time when I didn't even know I could feel anything or sense anything. Or the few things I was seeing, like a little flash of someone's aura in an odd circumstance. It's like, what was that I just saw? And of course, you try to talk, you can't talk about that stuff to fellow engineers. Um, they'd have thought I was more nuts than they already thought. How dare I solve engineering problems with intuition rather than logic? But their loss. So it's that resonance. Synchronicities are all about resonance. And the other key ingredient to synchronicities is your intent. You need to nurture the skill of intending to attract synchronicities. If you're not sure of your path, or maybe if you're not happy with your path, you can put out an intent of attracting to you synchronicities that will clarify situations for you. I like to do this and set altars. Some of you probably know basics of like the 4 directions and the 4 elements and things like that. And then right in the middle of that altar, I often will put something that is the focus of my intent. So if you want to know that, is this job here that's being handed to me on a silver platter with a 200% raise supposed to be the one I take, or should I pass it up? From the blue pill world standards, that's a no-brainer. From the red pill world standards, that might be a trap to keep you from doing your will. So write a question. The closer you come to yes, no answers, the easier it is to get clear answers. The harder it is to get descriptions in your answers. So there's a certain level of elegance that you miss when you ask yes, no questions. So somewhere between a yes, no, true, false question and writing a novel is the right answer for most of us. And you put that out there. And you hold that intent. And you should feel the desire to have your intent resolve intensely with a passion. You need to crave that answer more strongly than you crave food or water or sex or even oxygen. You need that answer to whatever your question is. I like to do that and put that out there with an intense purpose. Make a small little ritual out of it, do that. And then you can leave that on your altar and then forget about it. You need to adopt the sure knowledge that the answer is coming and it will come soon. And don't look at your wristwatch every 5 seconds, which is easy for me because this is the wristwatch I wear every day. I hate them. I've always hated wristwatches. And I didn't understand why back in the day, but it interferes with my energy field and the energy in and out of my hands. So anything constricted around there, I don't like on my wrists. So I've tried those fancy copper health bracelets. I've tried leather wristwatch bands. I've tried wooden wristwatch bands and metal wristwatch bands, and I don't like any of them. You put that intent out there, and then you expect it, and it will happen. It might be quickly. I've had them answered within 2 minutes, and I kid you not. And sometimes it's taken a week, a few days, a month. And if you're going along and it's like, I'm just not getting an answer to this, go back and look at your question. The question and the intent you put out is probably not on track for what you need to be doing. But that the intensity of your intent is important in this process. That's what makes it work. While you're doing this, absolutely, positively turn on your Akadwa. Charge your altar items, charge the altar, charge your question. And then as you're sitting there, you can't really see that. You're charging that. You're sending your intent, and then envision it going out in the 4 directions. Up, down. Native Americans would say 6 directions, with you the 7th at the center. And you radiate it out, up, down, and in all directions. And hold that for a while. Send it. Remember, there's no distance limitation. There's no time limitation. That's my intent. Out it goes. And when that's done, you walk away. You quit dwelling on it. And that is going to start helping you attract a synchronistic event. Now, then the next step is you've got to go stalker mode. You've got to go stalker mode and be highly, highly observant. There is a good movie. It's one of the Al Pacino movies that he did with that other guy. They always play good guy, bad guy, or they're bad guys. Robert De Niro. And I could picture him in Deer Hunter, but I couldn't remember his name for a moment. And Robert De Niro was the bad guy, and Al Pacino was the good guy. And we have a newcomer, John Smith. I think I've met 262,000 of your closest relatives. You all have the same name, John. Welcome. And if you want to share how you stumbled in and found us, or if we know you somehow, because I don't recognize the name unless that's your nom de plume. And the Al Pacino character is watching with some cops as they're trying to break into some kind of repository where they're going to be robbing jewels, or a huge amount of jewels, I think it was. And so Robert De Niro has his crew working. And they're in there drilling in the safe and all this inside. He's outside. Of course, this is at night. And they've neutralized the alarm system somehow. And Robert De Niro's just out there watching. I don't remember if he's got a toothpick. I think he had a little toothpick, wearing his little goatee. And just watching. And he doesn't know that across this freight yard there's a truck storage place. He doesn't know that there's cops in one of those trucks watching him. And at some point, one of the cops in the truck with Al Pacino makes a noise, drops something, bangs something, one of those, not quite as bad as Pippin in the first Lord of the Rings movies when he drops the skeleton with the suit of armor down the well. It was just a little bang. But you're inside a big metal container truck and it makes noise. It resonates. And the Al Pacino character is like instantly upset, but he can't say anything to this guy the way Gandalf did to Pippin. He just glares at him like if looks could kill, right? And the Robert De Niro character is just sitting there being a stalker, picking his teeth, just waiting. Pretends like he doesn't hear it. Then after a moment or two, he very coolly walks inside, tells his henchmen, leave it, we're out of here. They go, but I'm almost in. We're gone. And they all get up, they get and leave. They leave all their equipment, they leave all their stuff, and they just walk away. And they've been, obviously, this is not their first heist. They know that if the boss says something's up, we got to get out of here. So off they went. It's that stalker mode. And that's what you need to do as soon as you put out this intent to have a synchronistic event or series of synchronistic events to confirm or clarify your path. You have to be observant. You have to be just like that Robert De Niro character was, where paying attention to every little nuance meant the difference between getting rich or going to jail for a really long period of time. Yeah, I see what you're saying there, John. This is slightly, what we're doing here, John, is we're talking about your spiritual path in the world and how you find it and how you attract the synchronicities to confirm it. So when you're observing, pay attention. You're stuck in traffic in Mount Shasta that has all 5 cars on the road at the same time. And they're all white. That's telling you something. And when you learn to do that, and those things happen, and you pay attention, first you have to notice it. That's your sensory apparatus turned on. You're being the stalker. The dreamer activity is envisioning what you want to put out. That was your creation of your intent. And then when the synchronistic events start lining up to confirm, yes, I'm on the right path, no, I'm not, then you have to take action. There's a famous story at the start of the U.S. involvement in World War II, where they had just invented radar, right? It was brand new. And over in Hawaii, on one of the mountains above Pearl Harbor, they put a radar station. It can see, a couple hundred miles around. And the purpose of the radar was to watch for enemy planes. So somebody had that vision. And then they built it. They built the radar station. It's up there on the mountain. The crew's up there watching. And in comes the whole fleet of Japanese planes that were going to, on their way to bomb Pearl Harbor. And so apparently they didn't have good instructions yet on, okay, if you see enemy planes, do this. So the guys who are two low-level enlisted men watching the screen, and you're sitting there all night watching this little black screen about this big around and this little hand going around it, and all of a sudden you start getting blip, 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 and dozens and hundreds of blips are coming in, and you're like, holy moly. So they pick up the phone. They call headquarters. It's about 5 a.m. on a Sunday. Everybody in headquarters who has a clue is asleep. Or they're getting up to go get ready to go play golf or something like that. And so the officer on duty gets the phone. Who's this? Oh, the radar station. This guy didn't even know they had a radar station. You're seeing what? A whole bunch of planes coming in. Oh, we got some planes. It says here scheduled to come in later today from the mainland. Oh, they're coming in from the wrong direction? These are coming in from the northwest, not the northeast? Don't worry about it. Click. And the rest is history, right? They didn't take appropriate action. So when the universe lines up and says, this is the bad career, you really need to ditch this and go do that. So you do. And then the universe says, yeah, that new career you got, that's really great. Glad you're doing that. But now it's time to move again. And you're like, WTF? What's going on here? Well, you're supposed, this is just, you needed to learn this, and now you need to learn this, and now you're going to learn this, and then you're going to someday go do something else that combines all this. You're kind of scratching your head going, what? You have to have the confidence in the information you get that's legitimate, which means you have to develop the skills to know, are you getting legit information or not? And you do that through practice. You do that through sweat equity. I'm not sure I understand your question, John. Can you be more specific about rainbows? I'm not quite sure what you mean. So anyway, that's that sweat equity I was talking about earlier. The spiritual equivalent of going to the gym and lifting weights or running or mountain climbing or whatever it is. You have to work yourself. You have to push yourself constantly into a state and into a zone of discomfort. You know, you've probably all seen those internet memes of, oh, I tried exercising once. I got short of breath. I was perspiring profusely. I looked it up online. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. The flipping of the rainbows is a side effect of the chemicals being used in chemtrails as part of the geoengineering program. That's the short answer. But the fact that you notice that is a good sign. You need to be in that zone of discomfort. You need to be pushed. If you can do it yourself, great. Most of us need outside forces to push it. That's why sometimes seemingly bad things happen. You get laid off from the job you absolutely hate, and you don't know what's going to come next. Or you realize you hate the job and you quit not knowing what's going to come next. Because enough synchronicities told you, you got to get out of this place. You know, just like that Animal song, which was written about Vietnam, but that's another story for another day. But that song, when I was done with naturopathic medical school in Arizona, and I was really, really tired of 125-degree weather and sinking into asphalt and ruining shoes, and you're in a nice freezing cold air-conditioned supermarket, and within 2 minutes of walking outside, you're drenched in sweat. That was a song that started going over and over and over in my head. I gotta get out of this place. You know, I'll spare you the singing. I know there's limits to my talents, and I know where singing falls on that list of talents. But if you don't know the song, when we're done, go to YouTube, type in Animals, Gotta Get Out of This Place, and listen. It's a good song. And it got me the heck out of Arizona and up to Mount Shasta. So that's the Toltec warrior. You have to take action. Right? We've got those three natures. We've got the dreamer, we've got the stalker, and we got the warrior. So the next segue off dreamer, stalker, and warrior is you've all heard me talk ad infinitum. And after the first of the year, it's going to be the extra class that I add about the tree of life. And the tree of life is the 10 Sephiroth, interconnected, all of that. It's also analyzed as if it were 3 columns. Middle column, left column, right column, as you look at it. And as you look at it, like on the page in the drawing, the left column is called the pillar of strength or severity. The middle column is the pillar of beauty, sometimes called the pillar of unification. And the right column is called the pillar of wisdom, sometimes known as the pillar of wisdom. Because it really doesn't have other names. Everybody just goes with wisdom. Unless you speak Hebrew, in which case it's a completely different word. So those 3 pillars in the Kabbalistic tree of life align with the 3 natures of our Toltec world. Somebody just logged off. I wonder who these people are. Using this new setup, not my other broadcast software, I'm not even sure how to find who are the people logged on unless they're making chat. So anyway, the pillar of wisdom on the tree of life corresponds to the stalker nature. The pillar of beauty corresponds to the dreamer nature, and the pillar of strength corresponds the pillar of strength corresponds to the warrior nature. So you've heard me say before that every legitimate system needs to have alignment with the tree of life. That's just one of the many examples that exist between the Toltec work and the tree of life. And it's why I like to use the tree of life as kind of the magic decoder ring when you're examining 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so somebody was on. Everybody who's logged in and said, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. John, Patricia, Maria, John. Oh, looks like Melody must have fallen off. I know she has connectivity problems where she's at. And she has infants. So there you go. Every legitimate system has to line up with the tree of life, because the tree of life is a map of the structure of the universe. And everything in the universe has to be compatible with that. So let me take a look here. So this is kind of coming full circle. For those of you who are going to be attending, we have this level 4 class coming up in January. And between now and then, it becomes really important for you to increase your self-imposed zone of discomfort. Start to be absolutely diligent and ruthless on yourself with respect to your personal practice, your day-to-day work, your journaling, recording your dreams, your meditations, your readings, and so on. Know every moment of the day what your intent is for what it is you're doing, and put all your attention into it. Keep trying to improve what you do, and you will be able to accumulate more personal power that you will apply to your spiritual work. Your astral work will get better. All your work will get better. Your ability to contact your holy guardian angel gets better. That's a key feature that at some point it's like filling a barrel, 1 cup of water at a time. Eventually the barrel gets full and it raises a lever, and the lever gets high enough and it opens a gate, and then the communication happens. So let's see. John had another question. Like the mandala. That probably happened a bit ago, and I'm not sure what you're referring to with your mandala comment, John. So if you're still there, maybe you can clarify that, and I'll try to answer it. If you're referring to putting yourself in a particular state, then yeah, that's what this work is intended to do. It's intended to unlock something, just the way mandalas are. The sweat equity I'm referring to is self-imposed standards. Only 25% of your phone on my phone minutes. Gotta go. Okay. Thank you, Yvonne, for tuning in. Maybe you can. We're not going to go too much longer. I'm kind of wrapping things up. That self-imposed discipline, you have to bring it. You know, we just had the World Series, and I'm not a huge baseball fan, but I have a lot of friends, some of them on Facebook, some of them in real life, who are absolutely, positively rabid LA Dodgers fans. And it's been fun this last decade or so, when the San Francisco Giants have been doing really well. They've won 3 World Series lately. And the Dodgers, well, let's just say they have not. They've choked a lot in the playoffs. And leading the rush of choking in the playoffs is their famous pitcher, Clayton Kershaw, who he's got a really horrible postseason playoff record. And so he did it again. He lost 2 of the games in the World Series that the Dodgers just lost. He would be the kind of person who did not bring it. He's allowing himself to be psyched out. Is that consciousness? Is that John again? Yeah, I'll take a look. If you're going to let's say play one game, and that one game is going to determine whether you win or lose the World Series, and it's your last year of playing baseball, you need to put everything you've got into that game. You can't leave anything in the locker room. No reserves. There's no reserve strength for next year because there is no. You put it all in there now. In the movie Gattaca, which is a great work movie that I want us to do sometime, these two brothers would swim out to sea from the California coast, so cold water, big sharks, and they would just keep going. And the first one to turn around and go back lost. And one of the brothers was big and strong and athletic. The other wasn't. But the one who wasn't finally started beating the older, bigger, stronger brother, who was a much better swimmer, because the smaller one didn't save anything for the trip back. He just kept going. No, nobody died. Neither of those two brothers. The one was the cop. The other one did his space voyage. The guy who died, that was the one who was helping the smaller, weaker brother pretend to have superior genetics. No, nobody, he didn't die. He kept going. He would swim out, and his other brother would turn around and go back to shore, and then he would just kind of let the waves came in. No, that's okay. No worries. Yeah, he won because he went all in. If you use the poker term, he was all in. And if you want to create the conditions inside yourself to create that alchemical transformation, you're creating new neural pathways. You're creating new energy pathways to your higher bodies. You're forming your energy bodies from, it's just like an undeveloped muscle into a finely honed tool. That's what alchemy is about. That's the transformation we're seeking. That's what the Toltec work has the formula for. But you can't leave anything on shore. You have to go all in, and you have to push yourself. Even if I'm poking you and sending you a text message every day saying, did you meditate? Did you do this? That's at best a very short-term solution, because ultimately that transformation has to come from within you. It can't come from me. It can't come from your spouse. It can't come from your parents. It can't come from anybody except you. Now, here in the school, those of us who are working together, we can help each other. We can push each other. And by synchronistically and synergistically working together, we all make faster progress than any of us could alone. It's one of the key secrets of the Toltecs. But ultimately, the drive to do any of that, to push yourself, to work together, to help your classmates, that drive has to come from within you. And all I can do is tell you that, and I can tell you that if you do that, the rewards will be amazing. But it's got to come from you. Any questions? So ARE, universal consciousness, What do I think about the Mandela effect? The effect is real. It's the Mandalas coming from the Hindu traditions, the yogic traditions. They have some outstanding maps of consciousness, and it's kind of the same effect as walking a labyrinth. Not a maze, but the labyrinth. And it's designed to help you create those same kind of connections that we're talking about with the Toltec consciousness work. And of course, the Toltec consciousness work is strongly aided by the subtle energy system we use, the Akadwa. So I have a question for you, John, about the ARE universal consciousness. Is that Association for Research and Enlightenment, the Edgar Cayce stuff? Is that what you're drawing the name from? And a corollary is, do you have a website, or is that a Facebook channel? Where do I click? Where do I go to find other information? Okay. Any other questions? Expelling. Oh, it's a YouTube channel. Okay, I'm going to write that down. I'll look. Okay, expelling dark energies. From your energy field. Call me tomorrow sometime. We'll talk. Basically, you have to have an intent to expel the energy. There is some decording that can be done where you go into meditation and you go astral and you look at the cords to the person or situation and you sever them. And if you have any questions about that, that's what I can tell you how to do it. It's really straightforward to do that. So the Mandela effect, where people think history has changed. Well, when people think history has changed, in the Toltec terminology, we're jumping timelines. You know, we've all lived this lifetime other ways. The whole concept of karma and rebirthing, re-embodiment is a term I've learned that covers that concept. It's very complex. You can go from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, kind of, if you want to think of it linearly, but there are parallel universes, parallel timelines that we can go back and forth between. Sometimes that's accidental, sometimes it's deliberate. First time it happened to me, it was accidental. I mean, I was at a point in my studies where I knew it was possible, but I didn't really know how to do it. It just happened kind of spontaneously. I was in the same town, but some of the buildings were different. The space felt very different. And I remember looking around going, after a while, I was just observing. I went, I wonder if I'll be able to get back. And boom, the world switched, and this building right in front of me changed back to the right building. Yeah, we are in a dream. There is no difference between the dreaming and the waking. We're all in the hologram, if you want to think of it in Star Trek terms. This is all on a holodeck. Important things to remember is the dreaming is not so much an activity as it is a place. The movie Avatar is a good analogy, where consciousness is transferred into a foreign body. And then you go in there and then the consciousness pulls out, you're back in your original body. That's what our essence does as we go from incarnation to incarnation. And just like is shown in the Groundhog Day movie with Bill Murray, very old movie, very powerful work movie. At some point, we all choose a lifetime and we groundhog it. We repeat the same thing. Well, John, I would say your sentence is incomplete. But I can't fly here, comma, yet, would be a better way of wording that. We choose a lifetime, and we're going to repeat the same lifetime over and over again until we attain our ultimate transformation, this alchemical transformation that has been referred to in literature since medieval times. Actually, it's in all the ancient scriptures. It's just that in terms of European consciousness and the awareness of the human collective consciousness, that's when it first started. So that's more advanced, is teaching timeline shifting and travel, and there's some ground rules or groundwork that needs to be done first. So some of you are getting close to that. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you all for tuning in. Those of you who are going to be watching this on tape delay, we're going to be doing something similar next week. We'll be having a shorter, normally we go two and a half hours. And I was shooting for an hour tonight, but they had some very good questions and conversations. So something similar next week. So in the meantime, kick it up a notch or 3 on your personal practice. It will pay dividends. All right. Thank you very much. Do good, avoid evil.